Welcome to this week's Light Warrior session featuring Sitara. In today's interview, we dive into malas and their role in our healing, our meditation, and our connection to ourselves. We also chat about snakes, dragons, the power of the moon, and the importance of sisterhood. Sitara is a beautiful mix of highly intellectual and highly spiritual. She holds a master's degree in biology and ethics. She also holds monthly women's circles, creates custom malas through her company Indigo Malas, and is passionate about making meditation accessible to us all. This episode is one of my favorites, so let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Light Warrior session. I am here today with Sitara, and I am so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm so excited to dive in with you as someone that I know and follow on social media and also admire. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just recently were introduced, sort of, by a mutual friend, Jordan Rystrom, who is like one of the most magical people on earth. Yeah?
Yeah. 100%, 111%.
She'll like that.
She would.
So she is my current coach. She's a spiritual and transformational coach, and I've been working with her this year, and it is just like rocket ship into outer space, amazing. And I interviewed her on hypnotherapy, and during the interview she was wearing this really beautiful mala necklace, and she said, this is like my power necklace, I wear it for every interview. And she told me a friend of hers made it, and so later I'm like, man, I want me one of those. Mm-hmm. And so she showed me your page, and you are the creator of the gorgeous mala, which since a few more of my friends have gotten, because I'm like, they're just so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. So we're going to dive into other things later, but I've been really excited to talk to you about this. So here is my gorgeous mala. And so when I went to buy it, you have a few questions. There's a questionnaire, because these are all custom made. I didn't just like point and click. And so it was just very specially made for me, and it feels like it. And what's so fun, I didn't say anything about this in the questionnaire, but this summer, fall, wherever we're at now, I've had like this little dragon thing happening in my mind. Just like, I had this whole vision, and I'm going to start sounding kooky to some people, and that's okay. But that like, I have dragon wings. And so I've been on this like dragon trip. And if there's ever been a dragon mala, like it is this one, don't you think?
Yes.
It's so, and my kids are like, oh mom, your dragon mala is so cool. So like that's what it's known as in my house. So I'm gonna put this baby on.
Yes, please. Yeah, she's at home on your neck, around your heart.
So I would love to hear more about malas. What is the story behind them? Why are they so powerful? And I'd also like to hear what to do with it. I have a practice I've been doing that I made up that I'm excited to share with you, but I would love some guidance around it.
Absolutely. And honestly, I think that the way that I've stumbled upon malas and how they've changed my life started with something very intuitive and kind of made up as well. And we're at a point in our culture, in our society, where lots of different access points are available that may not have been taught in our families. And for me, the malas are very intuitive, and we can jump into a little bit about how they're intuitively created. But I think we all kind of know about the benefits of meditation being thrown around. And several years ago, after graduating with a master's degree and studying neuroscience like hardcore, I wanted to learn how to sit down and meditate and achieve all these benefits that I was reading scholarly articles about, but really just had a hard time. It was making me more anxious. It was like, oh, why am I sitting here? I have so many things to do. And I started researching different techniques. And I've been making jewelry since I could remember, like 5. I don't know, I was making like little friendship bracelets back in the day. So whenever I see a piece of jewelry, I think, how can I make that? And when I've heard about using malas as a focal point, I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Like something tactile. Like, I'm going to try that. But I'm not just going to buy a mala, I'm going to make one. So I made a mala, and I found, for me, besides running, which I think like there are active moving meditations, that was something that I used to use before I had a running injury. For me, the malas were the one thing that got me into that meditative state where it was an intention to access that state, and I achieved it. And I started to notice my life changing, because my mind wasn't racing all the time. I could be more present. I could focus in a way that was different from studying or being engaged. There was something about it that's very unique to that state, right? And then I noticed that my anxiety and my stress were going way down. I noticed that my imagination, my creativity was increasing. I noticed like a general sense of well-being just skyrocketing the more and more that I use this practice. And so I think the magic of meditation or using malas can be whatever really makes your heart sing, whether you want to choose something in Sanskrit or a positive affirmation. It's something tactile that helps us focus. And we know in psychology also, when you have a bilateral stimulation where the right side of the body and the left side of the body are being back and forth rhythmically used, it helps process things from our subconscious right brain emotional mind into the logical left conscious mind. And that helps us just move energy through, and things that are kind of bothering us subconsciously kind of get processed and brought to the light, where we're saying, I am choosing to acknowledge this, and I'm also choosing how I act, not react. And I think that's very powerful as we go along the journey of how can we be more sovereign and in our power and choosing the life we want to live and choosing the people we want to be.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. So, so many things. So you have a master's degree in neuroscience?
My bachelor's degree is in biology. I also have a bachelor's in political science, both with a focus on ethics, which translates to a 20-year-old really wanting to go into medicine and getting very angry at understanding the political, financial systems around the current medical system. Oh. And growing up in Ohio, I didn't know about natural medicine at all, to be honest. So I was actually in a PhD program, and then I decided to step down into a master's after I discovered natural medicine, and thought that being a naturopathic doctor was my next calling. But for now, let's just stick with the master's. I have a master's in biology, but I focused on ethics, policy, and law, and philosophy. Philosophy of the mind, how we make decisions, bringing in a lot of psychology and a lot of theory into the intangible aspects of ourselves. And I really love where science and spirituality meet, where the woo-woo philosophies that are ancient, that have been around forever, could possibly have physical, tangible correlates. So yeah. I found myself in this career path wanting to help people do research and really kind of like cross these different disciplines with a bridge that really made sense.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. It's just so fun getting to know people, and just especially people like you who are so multidimensional. You're clearly so open to the different aspects of yourself, because I know one version of you that you're new to me. And, so I know like Instagram model, she has a snake, so she must be a real badass. She's spiritual. So I love hearing this other side brought in as well. And I think that's important for people to hear, because I think a lot of us feel like I have to be this one thing. And I even know some people who are like in the spiritual closet, they feel like I have to, I know someone who's an attorney, and it's like, I'm an attorney and I secretly have this little hoard of crystals and have like a little witchy woo thing, but I'd be discredited if people thought that. And so I think part of that too is I've interviewed quite a few people now who very well understand the science, and that it's not just a bunch of magical made up stuff. We're talking about quantum physics and things, Mm-hmm. So I'm glad these conversations are happening so that people can go, oh, maybe there's more to that, you know?
Yeah, we're not one thing. We're multidimensional. And the more that we become in touch with all of who we are, the more that we put our power back together, because we're seeing ourselves as whole. And we teach people how to treat us. How we treat ourselves and how we view ourselves sets the precedent, not only energetically, but in subtle behaviors. We reveal ourselves in these micro expressions. And when we're fully accepting of our own selves, then we teach people to be fully accepting of us. And we give people a permission slip to be liberated in loving their whole selves and expressing their whole selves, the more that we give ourselves that permission slip first.
Oh, wow. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We're always influencing people for better or worse. I think about that as a parent a lot. It's like they are watching everything I do, and they're learning by observation, not by what I'm saying. I can talk all day, but if I'm not doing what I'm saying, it doesn't matter, So
Talk about accountability.
I think they can't see me and they're like, I heard mom say the F word or something. And I'm like, oh gosh. No, but in other ways, it's just beautiful. And yesterday I celebrated a big sobriety milestone, and that, just kind of the encouragement that poured in, which is always a mixture of like people that are proud of me, people that are shocked because they knew me when, and then people that are like, how, I see you doing it. But it gives people hope, especially the people that knew me when,
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I went to nutrition school, obsessed with natural health. So that's really fun to hear. Today on the podcast, I released one with a naturopath. And this year, we're doing this interview in 2020. Things have been really crazy. And I feel like a huge missing aspect of the information we're all being given is how to boost our own immunity, how to take care of our bodies, and how to feel empowered in that. You don't have to talk on this, but if you have anything to say, like, maybe there are some things you do that you can share with us, just a few things if you'd like.
Absolutely. And I completely agree that this is also kind of where I went from being a Western doctor to having a set of mind expansive experiences, being exposed to different ideas in a liberal arts college, and really honing in on the fact that there's an elephant in the room with how we look at wellness and medicine and health. And that is the mind-body connection. And although that's become a lot more present now, 10 years ago when I was in college in Ohio, nobody was talking about that. And I think that there's a balance between, we're always juggling multiple aspects of life. There's a career and relationships and self-care and, all these things. But at the end of the day, what really lights you up and makes you feel full inside, which can change day to day, or it can look like a disciplined routine practice, that kind of thing is really necessary. And so for basic immunity and physical stuff, my favorite go-to is turmeric. And I did a lot of research on that particular herb in an Ayurvedic clinic that I worked at for years, as well as just having the background to read these scientific journals. I think turmeric is one of the most powerful antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, antiviral, bacterial, antifungal, antiparasitic. And the cool thing about it is we're finding that it goes where it's needed first, and it radiates out from the gut. So if you really want those anti-inflammatory benefits for long-term neurological health, if Alzheimer's runs in your family, for example, and you know that turmeric can help with that, just know that starting to take it little by little and having a cumulative effect is one of the best things you can do. Because if your gut's out of balance and inflamed, the turmeric's not going to get to your brain right away. It's going to work on the gut first, and then it emanates and radiates from that spot in the body to all your different other organs and systems. Oh. And so I think that something like turmeric and just making little dietary adjustments and just watering that garden, pulling weeds and nurturing yourself little by little is one of the best things we can do. I also really love elderberry. I've been making elderberry tinctures for a while. Every winter time, I get a bunch of dried herbs or fresh herbs, whatever's available. And honestly, it takes 2 hours and I make enough to send to like all my friends and family, which is probably like 30 extra bottles. Wow. And it seems like very like it seems very laborious, but I promise you, if you look up a recipe for elderberry syrup and make it at home, especially since it's fresh and doesn't have preservatives, if you use honey, I recommend using honey. Of course, you can use maple syrup if you're vegan, but having something that's not perishable, but really, really fresh and really, really potent to take throughout the winter season is a wonderful practice. And it tastes delicious. I mean, other kinds of medicine are another story, but I find elderberry syrup, you can put it on your pancakes. Like, it's delicious.
Wow. Okay. You know what? You have that personality type of, I like that. I'm going to make it. First with the mala, ooh, pretty. I can make that. I mean, I have a friend who like, that's his whole thing. It's like, he'll look online at all these amazing things and I'm thinking he's about to buy them all. And it's like, nope, now I know what I'm going to make, you know? And then there's some of us who are like, I can't wait for someone else to make me that.
Don't get me wrong, my boyfriend cooks breakfast and dinner like most of the time. So there's certain things I make and certain things that I love to receive as well.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, receive. Okay. So this is a practice I've been doing with the mala. And what I like about this a lot is that it just calms me down and it's almost the perfect amount of time. So malas have 108 beads and in the past, the only thing I'd done with the mala was it was a guided YouTube video. It was a green Tara mala meditation that someone had recommended to me. And so, but it was pretty long and it was like a song and it repeated a certain mantra. And it was really beautiful. But now this is just more fun for me. So I start my whole practice with the mala and I just go bead by bead. And I say like whatever is on my mind that day. So it's always like half gratitude and half I'm open to receiving. So I'll start with like, I'm grateful for my mom. I'm grateful for my son. I'm grateful for blah, blah, blah. And I'll go through as many things as I can think of because I know how important gratitude is. But I also am not going to just sit there and like write a list of 5 things. You know, people say to do that. It's like, ugh. But it just feels different. And then I go into, I'm open. So then I'll go, I'm open to receiving love and say that a few times. I'm open to receiving healing. I'm open to receiving money. I'm open to receiving friendship, like whatever it is. And I just say that as much as I can. And I just like hold it in my hands and it's this perfect length of time, it feels like, to go through the whole necklace. Where by the end, I never get bored. Like it's not that long, you know, sometimes in meditation, you just really start to wander. But by the end, I'm just much more grounded and centered. And then I can move forward. And, you know, sometimes I'll do automatic writing. Sometimes I'll stare at the wall, you know, so whatever I need in that moment, it's easier to access. And because I'm in a much calmer space. So that's what I've been doing.
I love that. Honestly, it's like, when we're following our intuition too, that's our own higher guidance. And having this tool where you can dive into so many different kinds of practices or just do what feels good for you in that day and what bubbles up and what's most present. And honestly, I know a lot of people get overwhelmed by Sanskrit mantras and, you know, they're like, it's another language that I don't know. And should I even be using it? And, you know, it's like, honestly, my one recommendation for anyone that wants to access this tool is get really present with yourself for one moment and tap into what you're feeling. Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling like you want to invite more creativity in? Are you feeling so overwhelmed with joy and gratitude? Like, tune into what you're feeling and check in with yourself if you're trying to create something different for the day. So when I started creating my practice around the malas, my main issue was anxiety and stress because I tend to put a lot of things on my plate and think that I have the ability to bend time, but I'm not Hermione Granger with that little thing from Harry Potter that flips time. You know, I really wish I had one. So my simplest mala that helped me through so many tough times was I moved through my day with grace and ease. And the thing that I also recommend is not just saying it like automatically and running through it 108 times, but rather stop with each bead and say that mantra and don't move on to the next one until that at least a little bit of you feels the truth of what you just said. Feel in just a little bit about the possibility that you could move through your day with grace and ease. Just the possibility that you could move through the day without anxiety, and that you could surrender into the flow and know that everything's going to be okay. So I think the transformation that comes with using the mala is doing something that creates an emotional shift. And in the book, The Power of Prayer, the author talks specifically about prayer as this opportunity to shift your emotional frequency. He doesn't use those words exactly, but Kaira in the Sophia Code talks a lot about mantra as a transformational vehicle to shift from one reality to another, literally, because how you feel and what you're attracting is so powerful. And if you think about it also, sound and word and language is this vibration. And it's the first access point from what's inside your head and what you're feeling and what you're thinking into the external physical world. So if you're doing a mantra, and whether that's in English, whether that's in Sanskrit, whether that's in Hebrew, whatever it is, if you're saying that and calling that in and shifting the vibration and vibrating that truth and accessing that point in you that believes that that thing is true and it's possible and it's a reality that you can step into, I really fully believe that that can change our day and our lives and our world.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. And, and it sounds too like what you're talking about. Another, I don't know if this is the same as a mantra or just maybe similar, but like your grace and ease, it kind of sounds like an affirmation. And I have mixed feelings about affirmations. And I feel like people get a little bit hung up because sometimes we find an affirmation that's something that we really want to create, but it's very far removed from who we are, where we are right now. And I think that disconnect isn't great. If you're, I can't think of an example right now, but when it's something that's like the opposite of where you're at, then in your subconscious, you're just lying to yourself by saying it over and over, and it can just be frustrating. So, one tip I have for people that know what they are going towards, instead of saying it as a thing that exists, just start with adding I'm willing or I'm open to the beginning of that phrase. I'm open to receiving love. I'm willing to shift my perspective, whatever it is. So, and what, is there a difference between a mantra and an affirmation, or what is the difference?
I love that question. And, I think that so my understanding from studying Sanskrit mantra and diving into that, because coming from a background where I used a rosary a lot as a kid and came up with like a different culture and a tradition about praying on different beads, and then making that something that was more who I am today. Although Hail Marys are beautiful and they're great and I still say them sometimes. What I found that mantra is, in the traditional definition, is there's specific sound vibrations, and the words and the letters and the sounds themselves create a certain type of harmony and resonance within the body. And there's supposed to be this vibrational alchemy, kind of like, what Kyra Ross said, where all of a sudden you're toning, which means you're saying a sound and letting it resonate through all your cells and all of your being and your mind, and you're really wrangling in your like monkey brain and just like focusing on this sound. And that sound in itself creates specific hormonal effects, like different things in our physiology, different things in our mind, and can help us transform our current state into another one. On the other hand, an affirmation, like you said, is, I think affirmations are a certain type of prayer in a way where you're like commanding that this be so, and you're asking for this to be so. And I still completely also agree with what you just said. If you're subconsciously sabotaging that and you don't believe in it, and all of a sudden your like intention to make some good and say this positive affirmation turns into all the reasons why you think you can't, then what good is it? And I also work with Jordan a lot, and she's been one of my therapists too, as well as one of my best friends. So, we're big on tapping, EFT. Yeah. And so I find if I'm not really believing it, if I'm like, no, that's nice, that's cute, but what about this? Then I will do EFT tapping on specific points around that resistance point, and just allow myself to clear the gunk in the subconscious mind that thinks that it's no bueno, it's not accessible, and clear that out to make a little bit more space for something good and something miraculous to happen. And honestly, I've prayed for miracles before when I'm like, there's no way this is going to happen. This is going to fly. And a few times it's worked. So that's enough to make me think that it could happen again. But if I'm blocking that from happening and I'm really not believing in it, then I think that doing some EFT tapping is a great way to like clear that block. And then as well, yeah, if you change the word of I'm inviting this in, or I'm asking for the tools to accept this into my reality, or I'm willing to learn how to be in this beautiful space of gratitude every day, because I know some people are, and God, it's been so long since I've been in that space, but I've been there before. So I'm going to ask for the tools. I'm going to ask for the right people and the right opportunities and the right blessings for that to be so again. And I think just a little bit of self-awareness allows us to know what we specifically do need to ask for and what we specifically could be tapping on or praying for or affirming or doing a mantra meditation with. And they're all just tools, right? So yeah. I'm kind of loose in a certain way where I'm like, I do fully believe that you are so sovereign, and your self-awareness and your subconscious mind have all the answers within. And when you feel like something really hits a yes in your heart, to go for that thing.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate that distinction between the mantra and affirmation. That was more than I was expecting for that answer. So that makes a lot of sense, and that's really helpful. Excuse me. Tapping is, in my opinion, it's the best healing tool that exists, at least in my world. I mean, there are certain things that I feel tapping is the only thing that can get access to healing it. Like PTSD was a big one. And with war vets, or with people like me who have just gone through like terrifying experiences, and post-traumatic stress disorder is really hard to fully work through. It's just so layered, and so many things that are sort of related can trigger you, and you're just building up all this pain. So anyway, tapping was by far the best thing I ever found, that just, and it clears stuff so fast. You know, it's just the weirdest thing. So I am interviewing, do you know who Brad Yates is?
Yes. Are you serious?
Yes.
I love your podcast. I'm so excited to listen to the one that was released today too.
Yeah. He messaged me, and I thought he was joking. I had done like an Instagram story about him, something about him, and he replied to it and was like, so when am I going to be on your podcast? And I'm like, if this is a joke, it's weird. I don't like it. What's happening? You know? And it was so funny because I actually spent probably a month not scheduling. Like his assistant sent me a schedule, all the things, and I kept starting, and then I'd stop, and I'm like, I'm not Brad Yates level yet, you know? And so I had to like go through that on my own. I'm like, wait, clearly I am. He's talking to me. So it's just so funny. We find these like upper limits, or, you know, whatever, or wherever we're at. Anyway.
You're always guided. Anything's possible.
Yeah. And I'm really appreciating the internet right now, because like, where are you right now?
I'm in Venice, California.
Okay.
And I've been traveling for a really long time, actually. So I'm very happy to be home.
Oh, yeah. That's actually why I wasn't sure where you lived, because I felt like I saw you in different spots.
She's in Washington. She's in Utah. She's in Texas.
Yeah. Oh, man. So cool. Well, I don't need to take up too much more of your time, but I would love to hear a little bit about I know you have some kind of sisterhood. I don't know much about this, but I'd love to hear, like, what is that? Tell me everything.
Oh, girl, we can keep going. So basically, anything that I do is something that has worked really well for me. And I think that that's one of the things that I find really credible about other people that I look up to and that I study, is like what actually works. And just, you know, my story is like all full of whatever. So like my own troubles, my own traumas, my own whatevers, and wanting to heal that, and knowing that I could create a different reality from the one that I was currently in. So just preferencing that. one of the other things that I really struggled with for a very long time is, one, finding friends, and two, finding girlfriends. And I think a lot of that had to do with the trauma that I had with my mother and feeling like women weren't trustworthy. And then I had this very pessimistic view of what it meant to be a woman, because the main woman in my life very much disappointed me. And, you know, just like years of abuse and trauma, I was just, you know, like, women are so emotional and they're crazy. And like, I was like a guy. And I just was, you know, pursuing neuroscience and like these academic studies where I didn't even notice until my mid-20s. And someone's like, is it weird to be the only girl in all your classes? I'm like, I am. I didn't even notice, because I just kind of thought like a guy and was very logical and unemotional and didn't have time for any of that. And I completely cut off all aspects of my femininity. I mean, I wore dresses once in a while, but I was very much like just so disconnected from that. And then I found along my healing journey that there was that. And I was like, you know what, this is one of my deepest core wounds, and I'm going to dive right into it, and I'm going to work on it, and I'm going to see what happens and see if, you know, I didn't even have expectations. I just wanted to see what would happen, because I knew that I felt this big wall and this big resistance and all this stuff that I shoved into a closet in my own mind. And going through that whole process and reconnecting with my femininity, and then finding an amazing tribe of women that surround me, and watching my life change from having amazing, inspiring, brilliant, beautiful inside and out women around me. I was a way better person. And it was a kind of support and a kind of wisdom that I had never had before. And there's something about sisters where they're not your family members, they're not your coworkers, they're not your significant other, but they really got your back. Like, if anyone has ever had that moment where your girls have your back, but you were actually wrong. Like, there's something about sisters that, like, they got your back no matter what. They believe in you. They see your light, and they reflect that back to you, even in your darkest days, even in the moments where you're feeling lost and vulnerable and hurt and confused and crazy and everything. They're like, no, girl, you got this. I've got you. I believe in you. Let me tell you all the reasons why you're going to get through this, because I know you, and this is what you've done before, and this is what's possible, and I'm here for you. It's so healing. And especially in a city like Los Angeles, that took me so long to make friends in as well, because I kept moving like every couple of years to a new state. So I went for a very long time without genuine, awesome girlfriends that I could just call up and go hang out with when I was having a rough day. And I think that there's something really potent that's rising in not only the spiritual community, but really like the world, where we're coming out of what are traditionally associated as masculine qualities that are really hurting our psyche and our hearts and our spirits as a people. Working all the time, hustling, having to shove those emotions aside like I did, not being fully expressive, not taking time to slow down and smell the roses and appreciate, you know, subtleties and really put people before like profit and goals. Like, we're seeing these shifts in the tides of our societal ethics, and those shifts are coming into a more feminine, all-encompassing, community-based, emotionally valid based world. And so as we're coming into that kind of collective, I think that it's only like part of the process that women restore the tradition of gathering together. And typically it was around moon cycles. The moon is associated with feminine energy, and as much as I'm a scientist, there's something about this woo that is really truly magical. And so I started doing women's circles in LA probably 3 years ago, but it's a little over a year that I've been hosting them once or twice a month very consistently and haven't skipped one. So having that practice not only keeps myself accountable, but the women that are in this group, like, they've all made best friends with each other. They hang out when I'm not around. They're there to support each other. It's this beautiful network of people, not only like around LA, but we have a sister in Tokyo. We have people all international, all over in Texas and on the East Coast and New York. Like, people are coming together and they're finding a tribe that helps them really navigate life in a more empowered way. And so I love to host these circles every full moon and every new moon. In LA, for the new moon, they're in person. And then for the full moon, they're virtual. So anyone from anywhere can tune in. And we have engaging conversations that are based on different themes in astrology, which are also just themes of self. They're archetypal personalities, like Jungian archetypes. We're all of those things. But let's just focus on one that's kind of coming up for conversation right now. And having a meaningful place for people to express themselves, to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, and to engage on a deeper level and set intentions also, like kind of like when we were talking about all these different things of prayer or mantra or affirmation. And intention is a kind of prayer as well. And to have people support you in that and reflect back to you, or even offer resources and tools. And I've had people have job opportunities from this circle. Like, it's just a beautiful space for women to support women. And I think that being more in touch with my femininity has made me very passionate about opening spaces for other women to do the same. So Sacred Sisterhood is just a beautiful space for people to meet and come together and bond more deeply. And it's something that I'm very much just passionate about sharing with the world.
Yeah, I can tell you're passionate about it.
I'm Italian, I'm very animated.
Yeah, well, that's what we need. We need people to be passionate and then take action like you're doing to create these spaces. And I think it's especially impactful in a story like this, where you went from the opposite kind of, and I think a lot of women will resonate with that. I know I do. I was actually just, someone today was asking about my sobriety journey, and they were, asking what I did. And one of the things, because I basically did the opposite of my first thought for a very long time, because my brain was not working to my, best self. But one of the things I did was I joined a women's only 12-step group, which was just like horrifying to me. I was just like, ugh. And that's why I did it. Cause I'm like, I don't have any female friends. I don't know why I would. Guys will do what I want. Like, I had a really weird thing going on, and again, this was an addiction. So I was kind of like the worst version of myself. But I'm like, I don't want any distractions of men. That doesn't need to be a part of it. And I need to be uncomfortable, or I'm not going to change. And so I went into this all women's group, and I like had a hoodie, and I'm like, and some of those women, and this is 9 years ago, some of them I still talk to like every week. And I'm not even a part of that type of recovery anymore, but I made these lifelong friendships with people who were just incredible. And that started to slowly kind of crack me open. And my mom has complained a few times throughout my life that I act like a guy. And so she's always had like, you don't want to snuggle, you don't like to hug, you're such a dude, and in relationships and stuff. And I've I had that kind of badge, I feel like, that you are talking about, where it's just like, oh, I'm not like a girl. Like, they are crazy. They're too emotional. Don't worry. I don't cry. I don't blah. And it's like, who wants that? So it's just been in recent years, really, that I've finally started to explore being feminine, because it does make me uncomfortable even now. And, but I learned from this entrepreneur who was talking about building her entire business around her cycle. And that was like, I'm like, well, this is just logical, So, and I started doing that, and it was amazing. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe these things about being a female that I thought were a disadvantage are actually turning out to have a lot of power behind them. And the more I lean into that, the more like I'm softening, but also, and simultaneously becoming more powerful. And so that's an interesting journey. And this year, one of my big intentions I've had was like, guide me to friendships, guide me to starseeds, guide me to all the people that are feeling the way I feel right now. Like, we got to find each other. We're here on a mission. It's time, you guys. And I mean, like, look at what we're doing right now. This is exactly what I was hoping for, and now I know where I can find more ladies.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think what you did was really powerful. And, it takes courage to kind of answer that little call and say, one, like, totally logical as well. Like, I don't want the distraction of men around, and I don't want to, I might not be as vulnerable, or I might not go as deep as I would around females, because I'm not trying to impress them in the same kind of way. I can just, with the girls. And I just want to commend you for really listening to that part of you that said this was something that was best for me. Even though you say it was the worst version of yourself, you still were making amazing decisions to nurture a future and a version of yourself that you wanted to be. So I just want to honor that for 5 seconds and just say I see you in that. And also, just when you said the softening and the awakening of power were simultaneous, and how funny it is that we're taught that all those things that you and I both were ingrained in as weak, and we're like, I'm not like that. And then you have an advantage, right? Because guys like you more, or like you feel like you're meeting the standards of what it means to be successful and what it means to be on top of things, and I get more things done, and I'm great in all these other capacities, and I don't have that burden of like PMSing and being emotional and having emotions weigh me down. But honestly, it's the reclamation of ourselves as whole beings. Like, it's okay to be emotional. Emotions will never be logical. They'll never make sense, but it's okay to not make sense for a minute. And it's okay to kind of surrender into finding a balance within yourself of both, and shoving either one to the forefront and the other one in the closet all the time isn't necessarily healthy. And it doesn't allow us to just emote and have real human experiences, because we need both. Both are valid. The ego is important. Is it awesome all the time? No, it's not necessary all the time. Sometimes the heart needs to take the lead, and having the discernment to kind of balance between the two and allow ourselves to be full people helps us live life so much more fully.
Yeah.
And, enjoy the smell of a rose or a sunset, and just slow down a little bit. And you're a mom, you have to be very present. Like you said, you're very aware of certain things you say or do. And if you weren't, like, how many magical, beautiful moments that you will remember for the rest of your life would you be missing out on? It's so important that we allow ourselves to be human. We allow ourselves to be fully all that we are, and nurture the part of ourselves that's just, not being seen totally.
Yeah. And I feel like with men as well, like I see some guys really kind of taking the lead in this being vulnerable, that you can still be super masculine, but also cry sometimes, or have feelings and say them out loud, or, whatever is true for that individual. That, because I know some guys who I can tell, like, the pressure is on them to be this robot of no emotion. And I know a lot of guys that are way more sensitive than I am naturally, and well, I don't know, but my heart kind of goes out to that, where it's like, dude, you need to let it out and you'll feel so good. Like, just, you could do it by yourself. But also, like, I'm just really glad that there's more and more opportunity for men to find that and see that. And all the guys I see that are kind of the leaders of this, they don't look feminine. They're not acting feminine. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm standing in my raw power and also being vulnerable. And so I just think, yeah, it's a good time for all of us to be able to just see the different dimensions of ourselves, and even dip our toe in the water and go, well, let's see what this feels like. And maybe it's scary, or maybe you were acting like your natural self, but just kind of get curious. I think curiosity is what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps us grow. If we're not growing, what are we doing? We're stagnating. It's like life is evolving and it's moving, and everybody does have a masculine and feminine aspect to themselves, and everybody's norm and everyone's balance and harmony within themselves is different, and it still evolves over time too. So, like, what you were in your 20s, 30s, and 40s is likely going to be different, and then there's some people it's not. It's just really about, like you said, just embracing what makes you feel good, because men also have that really big pressure. It's like, yeah, we're talking about as women not being able to feel comfortable as as professionals and as daughters and as people in society with a face and and like for us to be emotional seemed weak. Like for men it's intense.
Yeah, I think it is. I do.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, Sitara, this has been really, really amazing. You have shared, thank you for being open to just answering questions all over the map. But, as you spoke, it's like, wow, this lady has done all kinds of stuff. So I can tell you are a learner, and I love meeting people that you can tell immediately that they love to learn, So anyway, thank you. And I'm going to make sure that everyone knows how they can find you and find your Sisterhood Circles. I mean, that I'm definitely in, like, let's do this. That sounds really, really beautiful. And also the malas. I mean, yeah, you're doing just really cool things in the world. And I just really appreciate that you have the courage to do that. Also, what's your snake's name?
So the snake was once upon a time a girl, and the girl's name was Sakura. And then we found out that the girl was a boy, and he does this like really interesting move where he like investigates, and his eyesight isn't that great. He's a boa, so for him it's all scent. He doesn't have heat sensors like pythons, and for him he like comes up to something and then he'll pause and like smell it out, and then he like does this like really smooth backwards move, and we say like it's really silly and kind of kooky. So his name is Kooky, Kooky.
Oh, that's funny.
He's actually my partner's had him for 4 years, but I've officially adopted him as my son, so I love him. He's actually right here.
I see you looking down. I'm like, is the snake next to you? What is going on?
He's 4 years old and 7 feet long, about 35 pounds, and his scales glitter like seedy holographic rainbows in the sun. And he's the sweetest, gentlest thing in the world. If anyone's interested in snakes, I couldn't recommend a Colombian red-tailed boa more highly, because they're so gentle, and
oh my God,
it's definitely changed my view of what it's like to live with a giant reptile. But anywho,
oh my gosh. Okay, thank you. So growing up, I was allergic to everything, including everything with fur. And my big dream was to get a snake. And so I've always wanted a snake. I have yet to live with anyone else who feels good about that idea. But I saw yours in one of your stores. I'm like, oh my gosh. That's amazing. I love it. Okay.
Well, if you're curious about more, just let me know. I'll be happy.
I'll have them talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Sitara. I hope you have a great night. And I'm just really, really grateful for this conversation.
Thank you for shepherding this conversation. I hope that it was enriching and enlightening and inspiring to everyone that's listening, to just remind you all that we can create whatever kind of life we want to, and you're not limited ever. You are so powerful. And thank you so much, Blaze, for being blazing the trail, a light, a star, a guiding, beautiful inspiration and example of that. So thank you so much for welcoming me here.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Let's continue this conversation in the comments, and for more healing resources, please visit blazebell.com. You are worthy, you are loved, and I am so, so grateful for you. See you next time.